It's a rainy day here in Daggerfall, and today we're going to be talking about honesty and how we tend to lie to ourselves. And it's really common. We want to believe something about maybe a person or maybe a choice we've made in life, maybe a job, and then we want to believe that we made the right choice. Or there's something really good about something, but it's not good in every single aspect. And we don't want to admit that there's a problem. So we put blinders on, and then we act like something is what it isn't. Maybe it's a relationship in your life that just doesn't honestly bear good fruit. It's not all bad, don't get me wrong, but it's also not serving you the way it should. And you want to believe the best, so you kind of hang on to that hope that it's going to deliver the results that you want. And then it just never does. And time goes by, and there's just this feeling of frustration because you're expecting something to be what it's not. You're expecting a person to be what they aren't. You're expecting maybe a job to be more fulfilling than it ever really is going to be. It could be a game. You're expecting that a game is going to be that end-all, be-all, perfect, forever game, and then it's just not quite great in certain ways. But you keep on logging in, you keep on coming back, because you don't want to admit that it's actually not very good. Like in the ways that really matter, it's not really good. And what's really hard is that things usually aren't all good or all bad. They're a mix. And that's what throws us off so often. Because you have something that's excellent, something that's very, very great, but then on the other side of the table, you have problems. And some problems are things you can overlook, things you can forgive, things you can say, well, you know, not all things have to be perfect. But then there's some things that are deal breakers, things that are going to take away your sense of fulfillment, your sense of joy, your sense of self if you don't face reality. Contradictions don't really exist. We tend to believe that we've found a paradox, we've found something that can't make sense in life, and the reality is it's always simple. The truth is simple. It's just we don't often want to acknowledge the truth in its complete form. And so we believe things that aren't true. And then we pay the consequence of feeling like there's something wrong, something that needs to be fixed. And usually it's not external circumstances that need to be fixed in our life. Usually it's just we need to reevaluate and then remove the contradictions from our life by acknowledging the truth. If it was something like a video game, well, maybe it's just a matter of thinking about what game you enjoy, you know? What game is fun? And which ones wind up feeling like they're not fun? Which ones do you not enjoy the experience in because of something that's a deal breaker? An example of that in game, I enjoy, as far as MMOs go, I like Elder Scrolls Online. I found I like the Lord of the Rings Online, interestingly. And there's a few titles I really like them because the world building feels like it's meaningful, and there's activities I like to do in the game. Like Elder Scrolls Online, believe it or not, the biggest reason I like the game is that I just enjoy chilling and hanging out and gathering stuff and selling it. And I like the housing, and I like collecting little things like pets and you know, mounts and stuff, and ESO has a lot of that. There's a lot of things I don't like about ESO, but there's also a core gameplay loop that I enjoy. So I'm willing to overlook the things I don't enjoy because, you know, I'm not super crazy about level scaled worlds, but, you know, who cares? Like, it's not the end of the world to me. But then there's also games like, for example, New World. New World is a game that's beautiful. It's pretty great. I like it in some ways. But the truth is I never really enjoy my experience in it because it doesn't have an established world that feels meaningful. And that's just my opinion. But it feels kind of soulless on some level. And so even though there's certain aspects of it that I like better, it's not a game that I want to continue to go back to, at least right now, and sink many, many, many hours into. Now, I could go back and forth and, you know, kind of be indecisive about that because maybe, you know, I want to believe the best of that game, but the truth is the world doesn't feel meaningful. Like, that's the bottom line. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if the combat feels better if there's certain things I just don't like about the game that make it actually not feel rewarding and fun to play. Doesn't mean I will never come back to it. Doesn't mean it couldn't evolve into something that I feel more intrigued by later on, but right now that's just the way it is. And so that leads me to the topic of moving forward but not necessarily closing doors. Now, you can't move forward if you're always anchored to the past. Like, you've got to be able to lay some things aside and say, no, I'm not going to continually be expecting something that isn't delivering good fruit in my life to change. I'm not going to keep holding out hope for that. I am going to move forward with my life. That's important, especially with things like more important things in games like relationships and stuff like that. If you're really, really determined to hold out hope that somebody is going to change and they're going to be what they aren't, and you're just waiting, you're waiting, you're waiting, you know, like one day maybe they'll come around. Well, okay, that's great. Maybe one day they will come around. It's possible. But how long are you going to wait for that? You know, how long are you going to hold your breath and hope that maybe someday somebody will change their course? Because they may never. And that's okay. That's okay because everyone's on their own path. But it's not okay if you're continuing to ignore the reality and pretend that something is what it isn't. Because denial is easier than facing the unknown. There's a guy I know, and he always would fall into these, I don't even know how he found these people, but he would go find these women overseas, and they would usually be in some other country, and he'd marry them or he'd be in a long-term relationship with them. And he kind of seemed like a joke because he was always in one of these weird relationships. But these women he was involved with, they were never there. Like, you'd never meet his wife, but he always had a wife, like somewhere. Like, she was always, you know, on a business trip. She was doing something. She was going to come to the United States as soon as some paperwork got sorted out. And it was just this never-ending spiral of him waiting for somebody to come around. And there's always an excuse for why it was going to be another few weeks, another few months, and then years would go by in that fashion. And the truth of the matter is, the man just wanted companionship, and he didn't have a lot of luck there, and so he found himself in these situations where it's easier to lie to yourself than it is to face reality. And I think everyone else could see that, but he couldn't really see that. So he was kind of always the victim of this sort of scheme. And in addition to the fact that he didn't get anything out of it, other people kind of, you look at somebody like that, and even if you like them, they lose credibility too, because you think, well, okay, if this person is going to fall for the same kind of scheme over and over again, that says something about their discretion. But we all do it in some way, one way or another. We all do this. We put blinders on. We don't want to face the truth, because the truth might mean, I put years into trying to work on my marriage, and then it all winds up being for nothing because she heads out, finds somebody else, marries some other guy, and so what do you do? That's not to say that everything in the past was all for nothing, but at some point you got to acknowledge, there's no fruit to be gathered here. There's nothing for me to do in this moment, so I have to face the truth, which is that no matter how you choose to look at it, sometimes zero is just zero. And it's better to start off at zero and then build up from there than it is to continually let something be a placeholder for progress. Like one day things are going to be better, but they're not getting better now, right? So how long are you going to allow those things that are doing nothing to drive you forward? They're just kind of keeping you from immersing yourself in moving forward. You got to be able to let go of some things, and that's true in a lot of different regards. And that does not mean you close the door, you slam the door on people or things, or saying like, never again, I don't want anything to do with a person. It's not that. It's just, you got to look at things honestly. Even if that's not convenient, you got to be honest, and you got to say, what is delivering good fruit in my life? What's bringing me actual measurable results? And that is what I'm going to invest my time and my energy into. You can always make excuses for people and for things that aren't the way they're supposed to be, and say, yeah, but here's the reason why, even though it doesn't look good, it actually is good if you factor in all of these additional variables. You just have to dig deeper to find the meaning. Well, you shouldn't have to dig deeper, because something that's good is usually self-evident. If somebody cares, they're going to be there. It's just that simple. If somebody respects you and you call them, then they're going to pick up the phone. If somebody wants to be part of your life, then they are going to put in some effort to be part of your life. If somebody wants to change, then they are going to change. If somebody wants to earn something, then they are going to make the sacrifices necessary to secure that thing that they want. There's a lot of people who will go out of their way to cast themselves as a victim. Maybe a victim of circumstance, maybe a victim of themselves, maybe a victim of somebody else, it doesn't really matter though, because at the end of the day, they're always going to have an excuse for why they are not committed to making any meaningful change in their life, and they are not prepared, at least at this time, to do anything to prove themselves worthy of further investment. And you can take ownership of it. You can say, yeah, but maybe if I just found a solution to the puzzle, maybe if I just figured out a better way of how to show that I care, then things would be different. It's kind of like a bad marriage. What do you have? It's very common to have a spouse that'll be like, oh, well, if you showed that you loved me more, then I would do better. I would be a better steward of things. I would keep my word more. I would be a better person myself if you would do more to make me want to be the right kind of a person. Okay, well, that line in the sand always moves. There's never a time when you do enough to earn another person's willingness to do the right thing in their life. That's just the bottom line. If you think that you're going to do something better to make another person interested in doing the right thing, you're never going to be good enough. You're never going to do enough to change another person or to encourage them to do something that they're not willing to do themselves. So how do we live a more truthful life? That's the question. It's pretty simple. I think we all know when we're lying to ourselves. We all know when we're saying, yeah, it's not very good, things aren't right, but it'll work out eventually. I have faith, I have hope. Well, things can work out, but sometimes you have to surrender the things that distract you from meaningful progress in your life. Let go of those things so that you can actually be free to be open to blessings in whatever form they come. Because blessings do come into our life many times in ways that are unexpected. You don't even necessarily have to go looking for them. You might just come across them. But you're never going to have the opportunity to encounter blessings if you've got your mind closed, if you've got your focus so set on one thing that you aren't willing to concede to the possibility that you need to let go of some things and move on. It's that way with people's careers. People stay in a dead-end job for many, many years, maybe their entire career. And they always think, well, this job is not respecting me. It's not challenging me. It's not even maybe good for me, or it's not healthy, but it's, but I believe the best of it. I've put a lot of time into it. I don't want to acknowledge that this isn't the right thing. So I'm going to just hang on to that hope that, it's not, it's me, it's not the job, or something like that. And the truth might be, if you let go of it, I've heard many stories. People walk away from careers, they head out, they do something different, and then guess what? You find them 5 years down the road and they say, oh man, that was the best thing I ever did. I just walked away from a job in a toxic company and I found a different job and I'm happy now and I've got good work-life balance and everything's amazing. Sometimes you just gotta take the plunge. You gotta acknowledge If something isn't doing good in my life, then I need to stop forcing it to be part of my life on an ongoing basis. And you have to make sure you don't have grudges. Like, you can't be frustrated with people trying to prove a point to somebody. You know, you can't be playing games with people, trying to manipulate them, trying to, you know, starve people of attention in hopes that they will, you know, feel jealous and be more interested in giving you attention. You can't play games like that. But you do have to understand that if people act like they don't care, they probably don't. If something doesn't seem to respect your time, that's, you know, just the way it is. And if something isn't doing good, you gotta let it go. And then you face the reality of having nothing. And maybe then you move forward, and then more things come your way that can be more healthy and lead to better futures. You know, I'm thinking about this story of Jonah. I'll close out with this, but Jonah was the guy in the Bible. He's supposed to go on some journey, and he didn't want to go on the journey that God wanted him to go on, so he decided he's going to go get on this boat and he's going to escape. That was the whole idea there. And then, you know, what happened is the ship encountered a storm, and the sailors, they're in that ship, they're trying their best to do their thing, and they just can't make progress. The storm is holding them back, and they realize that the reason for the storm is Jonah. He's on this boat, he's running from God, and the storm is a supernatural event. It's not a normal storm. Eventually, even though they like Jonah just fine and they want to do the right thing, they got to throw him out. They toss him overboard because they understand they can't move forward while they have somebody on the boat who's bringing that negative energy upon them. They can't move forward. They can't save themselves until they let go of that person that's in there that's not doing the right thing. And it's like that in our lives. Like, you know, we're trying to go about our business and do the things we need to do in life. And then we get other people, and we got other organizations, and we got other commitments, and all of these things that weigh on us, and sometimes they aren't healthy. And we can't move forward until we, so to speak, toss Jonah overboard. Like, we gotta get rid of those toxic things so that we have room to move forward without that shadow, that cloud over us. And whenever we do that, then suddenly life gets mysteriously easier, and doors potentially start to open, and we start to find hope in unexpected places. But it's that first step of faith to say, okay, I'm going to let go of the things that are false premises in my life, and I'm going to level set, and I'm going to test things to see of what sort they are, to see what's delivering value and what is something that I imagine is going to deliver me value, but in reality, it just weighs me down. And take care of yourself without being angry or having grudges against other people. You can believe good about others and also understand that they are not doing good in your life. You can forgive others, and you can also take steps to protect yourself from them. So wherever you find yourself in life, if you feel like you are at a loss to move forward, take a moment to do a solid inventory of your life and ask yourself, what's bringing joy into my life? What is making me feel more fulfilled, and what is possibly holding me back? Those things that you feel like they're holding you back, find the courage to let them go. Till next time, best of luck on your adventure. Thank you for watching.